Good day. It's December 18, 2023. House Republicans are preparing to make a decision as soon as January about whether or not to draft articles of impeachment. I'm Sam Buban, sitting in for Esmeralda Padilla-Gould, who is in a special assignment today. And welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Sam Buban. All House Republicans voted yes, while all Democrats except one voted no on a House resolution opening an impeachment inquiry on President Joe Biden. In a vote of 221 to 212 along party lines, the House Republicans all voted in favor of the resolution. We want to clarify to you that this is not yet an impeachment hearing, as the House Republicans said. This is just to authorize an inquiry that may lead to an impeachment resolution against President Joe Biden. The inquiry is about alleged business dealings of the Biden family, particularly his son, Hunter Biden. The Republicans had been making all kinds of assertions and accusations, but had yet to come up with a single shred of evidence. What seems laughable to many on the Democratic side and the American people, at least the average intelligence, that the Republicans could not say what evidence they have, and are saying like this: we don't have the evidence yet of high crimes and misdemeanor. That is why we are opening a formal inquiry in order to gather evidence, because then we have the subpoena power. That's what they are saying each time they are asked by multiple media outlets and even by their fellow Congress members in the House. In a statement by President Biden himself, he says, instead of doing anything to help make Americans' lives better, they are focused on attacking me with lies. Instead of doing their job on the urgent work that needed to be done, they are choosing to waste time on this baseless political stunt that even Republicans in Congress admit is not supported by facts. The punishment for what the Constitution describes as high crimes and misdemeanors, which can lead to removal from office if convicted in a Senate trial. But as things stand, without a clear-cut evidence, an impeachment will be dead on arrival in the U.S. Senate, where it is controlled by Democrats. Here's a part of the speech of Speaker Mike Johnson on the inquiry.
Thank you all for being here. These are serious times, and this is a very serious matter. And I've said many times over the last few years, because impeachment has been an issue that we've all become all too familiar with, that next to the declaration of war, you can make an argument that impeachment may be the heaviest power that Congress holds. That constitutional responsibility lies with the House. We have a duty to pursue the facts where they lead. John Adams famously said, facts are stubborn things, and you heard a recitation of that here this morning. These facts are alarming. They're alarming to the American people, they are alarming to us. And so while we take no pleasure in the proceedings here, we have a responsibility to do it. We're very proud of the work of these three chairmen that you've seen here, Chairman Comer and Jordan and Smith. They've done an exceptional job in uncovering the obvious corruption. And you've heard it here summarized this morning very succinctly. President Biden and the Biden family. We owe it to the American people to continue this process, but to do it methodically and transparently.
And here's an analysis and video collage of Mike Johnson during the 2019 Trump impeachment inquiry from MSNBC Alex Wagner.
This time of year, 4 years ago, Democrats were preparing to impeach Donald Trump for withholding aid to Ukraine in an attempt to get political dirt on Joe Biden. And Republicans were, not surprisingly, outraged. But there was one Republican congressman in particular who had a very specific reason for opposing Trump's impeachment, a reason that he repeated over and over and over.
The founding fathers, the founders of this country, warned against single-party impeachment. They said that it would be bitterly divisive, perhaps irreparably divisive for the country. The founders of this country warned us against a single-party impeachment because they feared it would bitterly and perhaps irreparably divide our nation. The founders of this country warned against a single-party impeachment. You know why? You guys know why. Because they feared it would bitterly and perhaps irreparably divide our nation.
The founding fathers warned us. I mean, they feared a single-party impeachment. They knew that it would bitterly divide the country. It might be irreparable damage to the country.
The founding fathers warned us, no single-party impeachments. If an impeachment isn't bipartisan, it should not happen. So spoke the founding fathers. And that was the message from Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson. And Congressman Johnson was especially concerned about an impeachment happening the December before an election year.
If you don't like the president, he goes on the ballot again after 4 years. We have an election in 11 months. Let the people decide this.
And today, we are once again 11 months out from a presidential election. And Speaker Mike Johnson has decided that he wants to go ahead with a single-party impeachment of the sitting president. Today, Republicans in the House passed their impeachment resolution through the Rules Committee, and they plan to vote on that resolution in the full House as soon as tomorrow.
House Democrats in response have said that this impeachment is nothing but a political stunt for Donald Trump's benefit. Democrat Congressman Jim McGovern of Massachusetts said, "This whole thing is an extreme political stunt. It has no credibility, no legitimacy, and no integrity. It is a sideshow." Fellow Democrat Congressman Jerry Nadler of New York, who oversaw 2 impeachments of then-President Trump as chair of the House Judiciary Committee, said, "You don't initiate an impeachment process unless there's real evidence of impeachable offenses. There is just none." Even Republican Congressman Dusty Johnson of South Dakota said, "We have had enough political impeachments in this country. I don't like the stonewalling the administration has done. But listen, if we don't have the receipts, that should constrain what the House does long term." But then again, Dusty Johnson still voted yes to open an inquiry.
In another development in the criminal case against Donald Trump in a federal court in D.C., the special counsel Jack Smith, who is overseeing the prosecution of the former president relating to crimes against the United States leading to the January 6th attack of Congress, Jack Smith filed a petition directly to the U.S. Supreme Court to decide on the immunity from prosecution claims of Donald J. Trump. Trump has been on many occasions in public speaking and through social media that he has presidential immunity from prosecution. Trump's lawyers has filed an appeal with the U.S. Court of Appeals asserting his immunity. But Jack Smith preempted any next move to delay the case toward close to the 2024 election by going directly to the U.S. Supreme Court, asking them to rule definitively on whether Trump is immune. According to legal observers, this move by special counsel was to save time, such that if the High Court decide that he is not immune and the prosecution for his alleged crime is proper, then he can no longer appeal to the Supreme Court, just in case the appeals court agree with him, that he will no longer have grounds to delay the case on the basis that he is appealing the legitimacy of the prosecution against him. The petition was filed by Jack Smith and was made on Tuesday last week. In a surprising haste, by the Wednesday of last week, the U.S. Supreme Court announced that they agreed to hear the case on the issue of immunity. Jack Smith's petition included a request for expedited ruling on the issue of immunity. Here is a legal analysis by lawyers at the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF podcast. What's this?
This is Michael Popak, Legal AF. Until now, the U.S. Supreme Court has stayed firmly on the sidelines of things related to Donald Trump, immunity at defense, insurrection, or January 6th election interference. Not any longer. Those days are over. 2 cases have now been brought up to the U.S. Supreme Court by a vote by the justices in their caucus that they want to hear 2 cases. They are bookends, they are companion pieces, and they are messaging to Jack Smith at the Department of Justice. And I'll try to interpret it all in this breakout legal AF law school session I call a hot take. Here we go. Let's start from the beginning. First, and I think the order of operation is important, the U.S. Supreme Court notified Jack Smith that the special counsel, that they are willing to at least have the briefing around the issue on an expedited emergency basis, whether Donald Trump, A, has immunity to have his indictment vacated, dismissed in the District of Columbia, and the more important point, will the Supreme Court take up that issue on a direct appeal, skipping over the lower level appellate court in the District of Columbia? Because how it's supposed to go is you start with the trial level judge, you got a bad decision, you take it to her bosses, which in this case is the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, 3-judge panel. You don't like that, then your next stop on the train is the Supreme Court. Except in extraordinary circumstances, the U.S. Supreme Court, as the lawgiver of the land, as the ultimate arbiter and interpreter of the Constitution, for really important cases like this one, could decide they're going to throw over a little bit of procedure and they're going to take the appeal themselves. These 9 justices are going to weigh in on this issue directly and not wait for it to come up through lower courts. We saw a sort of a version of this, for instance, in Bush versus Gore and the presidential election cycle back in 2000. So the first thing they did is they told the world and Jack Smith, you want to brief us on the issue? Brief us on the issue as to why we have direct appellate jurisdiction now to decide this case on an expedited basis, and brief it. And right now, Donald Trump and the Department of Justice is doing just that. The District of Columbia, the lower level appellate court, is briefing the issue too. So one of 2 things are going to happen. District of Columbia either gets it because the Supreme Court says we're giving it back to our lower level appellate court to handle first. We'll see you on the next go around, but not directly now. Or the Supreme Court says, no, we're going to cut out the middleman. We're going to make the decision for ourselves right now. That's that. What's the next message that came up? Because I said there were 2. The next message that came up is that they took a case and decided that they wanted to make new law or interpret law about whether the Department of Justice has properly used the obstruction of official proceeding crime against Jan 6 defendants. And they're going to decide once and for all whether that statute that allows for obstruction of official proceeding, which was passed in 2002 by the Sarbanes-Oxley cases arising out of those line of statutes, whether that was properly applied and mapped onto the conduct of Jan 6th insurrectionists and defendants. The Department of Justice used that count and has been using that count even against Donald Trump. It's one of the most potent crimes in their arsenal. It carries with it, I think it's a 20 or 25-year prison sentence. And other than seditious conspiracy, it's the highest number thing on the board for crimes.
If the Supreme Court rules that the prosecution is proper, the trial can proceed in March and could be over by June next year, months before the 2024 election. We are going to take a commercial break. Please stay with us.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. In the state of Arizona, 2 individuals were charged with felony interference of an election according to a report by Reuters. We are running the story because some of these things from the state level sometimes don't make it to the national news. Arizona State Attorney General Chris Mays announced about 2 weeks ago that an Arizona grand jury has indicted 2 Republican county supervisors. In some states, they are called county commissioners, which is an elected position, for felony interference during the 2022 election. Cochise County Commissioners Peggy Judd and Tom Crosby conspired to delay the certification of the votes cast in Cochise County in November of 2022, according to the state indictment. In a report by the Arizona Republic, the 2 county supervisors sought delays in the certification of the election in the county by requesting hand counts of ballots, as they raised questions about whether county voting machines were properly certified, even though they had received legal advice that such delays would be illegal. In a statement, the State Attorney General, Chris Mays, said, "The repeated attempts to undermine our democracy are unacceptable." She added, "I took an oath to uphold the rule of law, and my office will continue to enforce Arizona's election laws and support our election officials as they carry out their duties and responsibilities of their offices." According to the Reuters report, an attorney for Tom Crosby said his client was asking legitimate questions about the canvass and never intended to delay it. That they are confident that when the facts are reviewed impartially rather than by partisan effort in the guise of law enforcement, that their client will be fully vindicated of any charges. Lawyer Dennis Wilenchik said in an email, "The 2022 Arizona election resulted in a win by a Democratic governor, a Democratic Secretary of State, and a Democratic Attorney General."
In the Philippines, it has already been more than a week since the Philippines House of Representatives held a committee hearing by the Committee on Legislative Franchises of Sunshine Media Network International, or SMNI, in regards to repeated misinformation by the network. The House committee cited 2 quote-unquote journalists, Lorraine Badoy and Jeffrey Celis, in contempt after refusing to provide evidence and proof that Speaker of the House Martin Romualdez spent 1.8 billion pesos on travel expenditures. The contempt of Congress was handed down to Jeffrey Celis as he persistently refused to name source on the story about the 1.8 billion pesos travel expenditure of the House Speaker. Badoy and Celis have been known to use SMNI platform to label political opposition, critics, and activists as communists and terrorists without providing evidence or proof of affiliation. The committee ordered the detention of the 2 reporters and then were released after they brought their plight to the Supreme Court through their lawyer Harry Roque, the former presidential spokesman of then-President Duterte, citing Republic Act 53, or the Soto Law, named after Senator Vicente Soto, who was the author of the Press Freedom Law, which protects sources of journalists, which is similar to the Privacy Act of the United States, which protects undisclosed sources. Under Philippine law, broadcasting franchises for television is a power given to the Philippine Congress only. SMNI appears to be a brand name, or DBA, of the Suara Sug Media Corporation as the legal owner. But such media corporation is owned by the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, or KJC, whose top leader is the Filipino evangelist, Pastor Apollo Kibuloy. Pastor Kibuloy is currently a fugitive in the United States. He was charged by the U.S. Department of Justice with human smuggling and human trafficking. 2 of his executive employees in the United States had been arrested and charged with the crime of slavery and human trafficking.
An ultra-conservative organization known as Moms for Liberty which is known for advocating for banning things in the name of protecting children from quote-unquote harmful content, is facing one of their biggest scandals yet. Bridget Ziegler, who is one of the founders of the organization, has been facing calls for her resignation as member of the school board of Sarasota County in Florida, after the allegations of rape from another woman by her husband, Christian Ziegler. Christian Ziegler, who is Florida's Republican Party chairman, is yet to be charged on sexual assault. Documents show about a sexual threesome encounter, and Bridget herself did not show up, yet Christian persisted on sexual battery as he arrived at the victim's apartment. People in the media dubbed the organization as Moms Against Literacy or Moms for Ignorance because they spearhead the bans of books they feel is not good for their so-called Christian values. The organization has been accused of causing harm to marginalized groups, people of color, and the lesbian, gay, bi, trans, and queer, or in other words, LGBTQ community.
In Las Vegas, this Christmas season is usually the busiest for the Fil-Am community. Different civic and nonprofit organizations held their events the past 2 weeks, and it will continue till New Year. Here are some of the events that took place, and the polls had a glimpse of it. The AAPINA or APINA for Asian American and Pacific Islander Nurses Association did their induction of officers and Christmas party at the Gold Coast Ballroom on December 2nd. The event was under the leadership of Zara Morines, the outgoing president. The new set of officers were sworn in by State Assemblyman Yui Wen of Nevada Assembly District 8. Also, the Philippine Institute of Civil Engineers, or PICE, USA chapter did their annual gala event in Las Vegas. It was also held on December 2nd at the Gold Coast Hotel Ballroom. The Filipino-American Charity Foundation, under the leadership of Luz Micabalo, and the Filipino-American Association of Nevada, or PAAN, under the leadership of Dr. Daniel Fabito, did their annual gala and fundraiser event on December 9th at the Suncoast Hotel. Here are some of the footage from those events. When we come back, we will show you the Miss Fil-Am Nevada Beauty Pageant. Please stick around.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. The Fil-Am Civic Action International, also known as FASAI, spearheaded the 2023 Miss Fil-Am Nevada Beauty Pageant that was held at Gold Coast Hotel Casino Ballroom. There were actually 4 categories on the pageant: the Miss Teen Fil-Am Nevada, the Miss Fil-Am Nevada, Mrs. Fil-Am Nevada, Miss Senior Fil-Am Nevada. It took place last Saturday, December 16. The Pulse TV crew was there to cover the event. Here are some footages and the coronation of the winners.
Well, folks, we are out of time for this episode. Please join us again next time. I'm Sam Buban. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Joe Buban. God bless your week and happy holidays.